Hey guys, J here. Now, Enlisted at the moment has 12 campaigns, and basically, yeah, it has 12 campaigns, and each one, of course, has its own strengths and weaknesses. So today, I'm actually going to be looking at each campaign, and I'm looking at its strengths. Basically, I'm looking at how strong it is. So each campaign, how strong they are, basically. So for example, I'm going to be ranking them against each other, so essentially think of this like a 1v1 on all of them. And yeah, it's going to be my opinions. And yeah, so I'm going to be ranking them. There's a few things to keep in mind first off. For factions that start out quite, well, let's say start out very, Quadro's online. For campaigns that start out, very weak, I'm talking, Tunisia, Normandy, Pacific, but get stronger and stronger as the time goes on. Again, Tunisia, Pacific, Moscow, stuff like that. It's going to be basically, if it's like, their late games are very similar, it's going to be how good is their early game compared to how good their late game is. So, for example, with something like Normandy, for example, they're going to have a bit of an advantage in the earlier game than, say, Pacific or Tunisia. As well as this, again, I'm not just taking into account, just weapons, I'm also taking into account vehicles, squads, etc. I'm not going to take into account premium squads, so stuff like, So, if a campaign has some god-tier overpowered squad, like maybe the Matilda, I guess, or the paratroopers in Normandy, same with event squads, I'm not going to take them into account. But I am going to take into account one elephant in the room, and that is Stalingrad. Now, as we all know, Stalingrad's monetization, I disagreed with it. I disagreed with it a bit. I disagreed with it quite a bit, but honestly, for this video, I'm actually, even though I can't actually see the monetization, because, it's pretty much, if you didn't buy it, you can't see the levels you would have gotten. I'm still gonna be using the monetized version of Stalingrad. So stuff, you expect to see stuff, me talk about stuff like the T-34 or the K, or whatever it was, the STG for the Axis, the T-34 for the Soviets, stuff like that, in regards to, me ranking these videos. And not me ranking these fucking squads videos, I can't remember. Fucking hell, I'm tired. But yeah, as a result, I'm going to be taking into account Stalingrad's paid version rather than its unpaid version. Normally I would take into account the unpaid version of Stalingrad, but I think for this one, I'm going to take into account the paid version as well. It does make somewhat of a difference, so yeah. Anyways, that being said, I'm going to start with what I think is the weakest campaign and work my way to the strongest. I don't think the weakest comes as any surprise. It's Tunisia Axis. Now, I like Tunisia Axis a lot. I think they've got a lot of great stuff to them. For example, they've actually got very good, in my opinion, the best early war SMG. They've got the best early war or early game SMG with the Beretta M1. They've got other pretty good ones like the Beretta Vidal 3842. Oh, Ghosts Online. A lot of people online today. They get stuff like the Carcano with the 7.35, which is a very good, in my opinion, bolt action. One of the best bolt actions in the game. They get some decent stuff like the ZH later in the tech tree. They also get some pretty cool, anti-tank weapons. They've got the Ketten. They've got the MG34, which is one of the best machine guns. They've got some very good weapons. And they've got some solid vehicles. They've got 109 there. They've got the F2 there. The Panzer 3J is alright, I guess. They've got some alright stuff. And of course, they have the bike squads, which, bike squads are pretty much... I mean, look, they've got a fucking wolf. You can't go wrong with a fucking wolf. But, yeah. Their weaknesses definitely show. To start off, yeah, they've got really good early game SMGs, but it doesn't really translate well to the late game. There's no PPSH, there's no assault rifles, there's no Thompsons for hard-hitting SMGs. They just got really Beretta M1, Beretta Model 38, Beretta Model 38. The OVP, I like OVPs and stuff like that. I like the Beretta Model 1918. I think it's a really good SMG. Not the best in the game, but it's fun to use. But I don't understand why people hate these SMGs. In fact, the devs hate them. They've literally downgraded them a lot. But again, there's no assault rifles. There's no select fire weapons. There's no big machine, high capacity SMGs. Other than the Berettas, they're high capacity, especially like I said, the M1, which is again the M1 pretty much was in contention for between. It was really this one and number 11 were really in contention. The Beretta M1 was bringing it into contention, but other than that, they don't really have much. Yeah, the double dipping on the MG34 and the Vaketten really do give a lot, and some of their vehicles give a lot, but I think that the other faction, faction number 11, just had it beat. And yeah, let's talk about that faction now. Coming in at number 11 is actually the Japanese. Now, the Japanese are actually a very popular faction. They are actually, I'd say they got one of the highest pick rates of any faction. But they generally do not have much in terms of good stuff. And I think that's really just how good the Japanese players are, that they still win 90% of the time, despite the fact that they don't have that many good stuff, and they are still let down by a lot of just... It's actually quite... I think it's quite interesting that the Japanese have this, but they really don't... they don't have many good vehicles. Their planes are pretty good, but they don't have good tanks. They've got... their rifles, the Type 4 is their best one in terms of semi-auto, but it's only a pure semi. They have no select fire. I mean, the Arasakas are really good. I like Arasakas, Type 99s and stuff like that. They're really good, I've heard. The SIG and the MP28, they're high-capacity magazines. Even the S1100 is a very good early-game SMG. The Type 2, if it's anything like the Type 1 here, that one's gonna be a very good SMG, and they've got some pretty fun weapons. I mean, they've got the sniper LMG. You got some decent LMGs here later in the track. They obviously have the lunge mine, which those are the greatest memes ever. But they've also obviously got the katanas as well. They've got the I'm not even gonna try pronouncing that katana. And yeah, they've got some pretty fun stuff, but this is where I think they really do come into a bit of a weakness, and it's why this one thing is exactly why they came quite lower. They're quite low. They're only at 11th. There's no select fire weapon. Now, I know the Japanese were very bad when it came to weapon development. They had pretty poor, weapons in terms of... Compared to the Allies, compared to the Axis, other Axis nations, they had some pretty poor weapons. But I think it's actually a testament to how good this is their best weapon. It's essentially a Garand. This is essentially a Garand with 10 rounds. This is their best This is their best rifle, pretty much, in the game. A 10-round M1 Garand. Compared to what the Allies have, yeah, it's really in contention. Other than that, they've got some pretty fun weapons. The Type 97 is actually a really good sniper. I really like the Type 97. The Type 1's alright. I do like the Type 99 at times, so yeah. They've got some pretty... I have used the Type 99. They've got some pretty good weapons, like, you can see here, I like the Type... I do like some of their stuff, they've got some pretty fun stuff, but I will say that they are definitely not the strongest faction. They've got some good SMGs, though, in the late game. So they've got good SMGs in the late game, some pretty average ones in the early game. Yeah, they're pretty... I think they're just an average faction, but they're not. They don't have anything that makes them stand out as powerful, which is why they came in at number 11. Anyways, let's move on to number 10. Now this one's going to be very controversial, but I think Stalingrad Soviets, oh for God's sake, I've been getting this a lot. Stalingrad Soviets are actually one of the weaker factions in the game. Now, obviously, I'm taking into account, like I said, I am taking into account the old progression, but let's take the goods for a start. They've got good vehicles. The KV-1 is a very strong tank. They've got multiple T-34s. They've got KV-1s, obviously, they're very strong. Obviously, I'm not even going to take into account this BT because it is because it was an event. I think it was a Twitch drop. Or, no, actually, no, it wasn't an event. It was Silent Hunters. So, they've got that. They do have some pretty good weapons. The Winchester, obviously, is one of the best early game rifles. They got the SVT at pretty early. They got the SVT very early. They get the PPSH. They get the PPSH, the PPS-42, which is a pretty good SMG. And they get the DP-27, not the best. I think they do get the DT as well, so they do get the DT as well. But this is where it gets into the negatives. They don't have a select fire weapon. Now, I know you might be saying, oh, they have the AVT. The AVT can only be used by, I can't actually show, but the AVT in this campaign, if I actually go on to, 25, it can't be used by regular riflemen. This is the only time a select fire weapon can't actually be used by riflemen. You've also got, of course, you do have stuff like the DT, which, it's alright. The TOS being locked behind a paywall, which is hilarious. Like, why pay to get the TOS? Why pay for the TOS? They do get some cool stuff like the Winchester, as you can see here. But, again, it's just not... They don't have many good weapons. They've got good vehicles. They probably have some pretty good aircraft. And they've got a Yak. They've got a Hurricane. Yeah, the Hurricane, which is pretty good. They get an A-20 with some 100-pound bomb... with 400-pound bombs. I thought it was 100-pound bomb, but yeah. They do get some stuff, but it's not like insane amounts. And their lack of a select fire really does hurt them, especially compared to other factions. Anyways, let's move on to number 9. I know this might be a hot take, but I generally think that the Allies have a better kit in terms of like how good their kit is compared to the Axis. Now, the Allies in the Pacific are pretty much a meme at this point, and how, I wouldn't say god-awful their kit is, but how, unpopular they are. So, let's take a look at the obvious one. M2 Carbine instantly puts this ahead. Like, the M2 Carbine is one of the best weapons in the entire game. And it pretty much takes this thing dragging and screaming. It has the M1A1 Thompson as well. Very good weapon. The Browning Auto 5 as well is the only good shotgun in this game. So they've got some pretty good stuff scattered here and there. They've got the Johnson, they've got the A2 here, which is another fantastic LMG. Like, seriously, the A1 Browning, the BAR, the A1 BAR, very, very good weapon. They do get some crap here and there, like the Boyd ATR and the bazooka here. But, yeah, they do get some pretty strong stuff like that M9 there as well. And, yeah, they've got some... But I think we need to get into the negative. These are really bad early game weapons. Like, the Rising is not a good... It's an okay SMG, but it's nowhere near as good as what a Thompson is, or a Sten, or even what the Axis have with the S1. The M3 as well. I hate the M3. It's a seriously bad weapon. I also don't think they have that many good vehicles. I think their best vehicle might actually be... I don't have it equipped for some reason. But it may actually be the M13 here. The M13 is quite a pretty solid vehicle. The Stuart, one of their best vehicles... their best vehicles are probably like the Stuart and the Scott. And these are pretty bad vehicles in most other campaigns. They do have the Dauntless with the 1,000-pound bomb. So it's not like... they don't have completely worthless stuff. So, but other campaigns have the Dauntless as well. So, yeah. Other than that, it's kind of like I think it's got really good stuff in it, but it's peppered with just so much crap. Like you've got a Thompson, you've got the M2 carbine, you've got stuff like that. You've also got stuff like the fucking A4 Springfield, which is one of the worst weapons in the game, in my opinion. You've got some pretty poor submachine guns until you reach the Owen, I believe. And you've got some pretty weak anti-tank until the M9 bazooka. So, overall, it's solid. It's nothing major, but it's solid. At number 8, we've actually got Tunisia Allies. Now, Tunisia Allies is another faction that's notorious for being OP. But, honestly, I think its main thing is the reason it's going above the Allies in... Well, there's two reasons. Number one, the vehicles. The Grants, the Sherman 2, the A20, the Dauntless, the Spitfire. They are all way better than the Allies in the Pacific. So they're pretty strong in those regards. They also have some very good assault weapons. I mean, look at this. 4 Thompsons. Lanchester and the Sten. That is one of the best loadouts, I think, for any faction. You've got hard-hitting Thompsons. Then you get a drum mag Thompson. They've got some pretty good rifles as well. Like they got the number 3 here, the number 4, the Garand, the Model T. Yeah, they've got some pretty good stuff. You know, even the Vickers here, the Bren, the BAR. You know, they've got some very good. Some very good LMGs as well. The Piat is a pretty good tank killer. They've got the stuff, that they have. The problem is, though, they have one major problem. No select fire weapons. I think that's really what's keeping Tunisia back. If Tunisia had select fire weapons, I reckon it could be making top 5 if Tunisia Allies had a select fire. If it had, like, an M2 carbine, it would probably be top 5. But because it doesn't, I'm going to have to put it a lot lower. Now, I do know that the Pacific had a select fire with the the M2, but I think that this just has a much more rounded loadout. This is what I was saying with, one weapon, like earlier when I said that one weapon doesn't just guarantee this thing's going to be much better than it actually is. It needs a much more rounded loadout. This is an example of that, and it really shows. I mean, you've got some really good... you've got the best bolt action in the game in this campaign, for Christ's sake. The number 4 here, I said the M, what is the M? Anyways, the number 4 here is one of the best bolt actions in the entire game. It's in my opinion, the best bolt action in the game. It's one of the best bolt actions ever made. But yeah, other than that, they've got some really good stuff. Anyways, let's move on to number... Wait, is it 7? I think it is. Coming in at number 7 is actually Mustgo Axis. Now, Mustgo Axis, again, they haven't got any select fire rifles, but what they lack in that department, they make up for with one weapon, MKB. MKB pretty much makes this, literally drags this kicking and screaming into number 7. I think if this campaign didn't have the MKB, it would be a lot lower. It would be down there at like number 10 or something like that. It would be lower than Stalingrad and Soviets. But the MKB, the Karali as well, kind of would just really make this. The MG34 is a really good machine gun. It's one of the better machine guns in the game, in my opinion. But, yeah, they've also got... in terms of vehicles, they don't really have much. They got some Panzer IVs later down the line. They've got Stuckers, which... Stuckers are fine, I guess. They've got the ZH, which is a pretty good semi-auto, one of the better semi-autos in the game. But, yeah, they do not have many, overpowered... they don't have many great... they don't have the good select fires that the Allies have. which is why they're coming in at number 7. Anyways, let's move on to number 6. For number 6 is actually Stalingrad, and honestly, the Stalingrad Axis are pretty much the exact same as Stalingrad Allies. Look at it, they've got the same vehicles, for Christ's sake. There is only one thing that makes Stalingrad Axis better than Stalingrad Allies. Well, two things. One, MP717 makes it much better, but two, and most critical in my opinion, it's the MKB and how it reacts in this campaign. Now, the reason why this is so important is because the MKB in Stalingrad is actually much better in this campaign because you can use this on engineers. Yeah, you can use it on engineers, and yeah, it's about as powerful as you'd expect. The MG42 is another weapon I think really makes it as, you know, this one's another pretty powerful weapon I think that pretty much, you know, boosts it up quite a bit. And yeah, other than that, yeah, not really much else to say. It's really just the MG, it's pretty much the exact same as Moscow. Coming in at number 5 is actually Normandy Allies. Now, Normandy Allies is a very strong faction. I mean, do I even need to say it? They have really strong vehicles with the M4A1, the P51s are pretty good. They've got the P38s. They've got obviously the P47 here. They've got some pretty strong weapons with the M2 carbine, the Thompsons, the 1986. They're just really well rounded as a faction. In fact, generally, this is actually where it actually gets really difficult for me because the next 5 factions are really well rounded in terms of how strong they are. You know, key stuff being the 1986, the P47, the Thompsons. The only real downsides I have is they don't have like a really big standout. Like, there's no assault rifles, and there's no drum mag. SMG stuff, like there's no drum mag Thompson. I think if this was a drum mag Thompson, we would probably see contentions for this thing for Normandy Allies being top 2. Maybe even top 3. Top 3, maybe top 2 in contention. But yeah, they just don't. Also, there's one more problem. Their ground vehicles, with the exception of the A1 here, the 76 A1, are all pretty shit. And are just outclassed by the Axis. The Stuart's pretty bad, the Scott's okay, but it's pretty awful. The Sherman's okay, but it's not nowhere near as good. The Jumbo is nowhere near as good as it used to be. And it's not even like it got nerfed a lot, it's just that everyone realised how to fucking kill this thing. And that it has like god awful ammo. Like the ammo especially the armor piercing ammo is god awful. The M10 and the M18, so the Hellcat and the Wolverine, they're both awful. Really, it's only the A1 in terms of ground vehicles. They've got great air vehicles, but they've got really only one good tank, which is I don't even have it equipped yet for some reason. I've got the Jumbo equipped, but yeah. 76 is definitely the best tank in Normandy Allies. And it's not even close. I might actually end up buying this. This is actually not even a bad tank to have. Coming in at number 4, we have Moscow Soviets. And again, this is where the jump really begins. Moscow Soviets have no bad vehicle. have nothing bad about them. In fact, I'm pretty much nitpicking with these. Really, and what do you have? PPSH, Fedorov. I mean, look at this. PPSH, Fedorov, the AVS. Some pretty good machine guns. Tank-wise, they've got the T-50. They've got... Where is it? T-34, T-28. And they've got some decent decent planes with like the IL... I think they've got like an IL-2 or something. No, they have the IL-2 here. And that's about it. Really, yeah, what else is there to say? It's just really good. The only there's only really there's a couple downsides. One, they don't have any good LMGs until the DT-29. So until they get the DT-29, they're pretty bad. The Madsen's not that good. The DP is overrated. Yeah, they don't have many, and yeah, they have to wait until 11 to snowball into their high level stuff. So when they get to rank 11, that's when they start snowballing. Like Winchester, I mean, they let you get the Winchester. They get stuff like I just stopped doing that. You know, PPD, PPSH, Fedorov, it's all really good. Even the DP, that's pretty solid, but it's not anywhere near as good as what the Axis get with the MG34. DT is a very good LMG as well. They've got just really good stuff. Really, it's only their planes and most of their stuff being locked in the late game, which is really hindering them. Unlike some other factions which get some pretty good stuff earlier. Anyways, let's move on to number 3. At number 3, we've got my personal all-time favourite faction, Normandy Access. Now, Normandy Access is my favourite, but they generally have a lot going for them. I mean, again, pretty much, I would say this is the most complete faction. You generally have so much with this faction that it's not even funny. I mean, you've got 2 assault rifles, you've got great anti-tank, great tanks, great vehicles, select fire weapons. You know, you've got the FG-42 there, you've got the STG MP-43, you know, you've got really good machine guns, MG-34, MG-42, MG-34 with the drum. You've got, honestly, just really powerful weapons, really powerful kit. It's my favourite faction for a reason. The only thing that I think really makes this just at number 2, it's not number 1, is ironically their tank selection. Now, I do know they get a Panther, they get a Tiger, but if you're going to see, yeah, the other 2 factions, I think, just get better tanks. And personally, yeah, that was what was keeping Normandy Allies, and Normandy Axis, away from the top 2. I mean, really, was there any... I mean, pretty much, I'm pretty sure everyone knew that Berlin was going to be top 2. I mean, Berlin, in terms of power levels, is insane. I mean, just look at what they get. Like, this is just their tank selection. Panther, Panzer IV, these are mid-game. Well, they get the Axis Normandy's mid-game tank as their starter tank. And their mid-game tank is Axis Normandy's late-game tank. They also get stronger tanks in terms of the Tiger 2. Like, so they get the Tiger 2, so they get the strongest Tiger. You know, they get one of the strongest tanks in the game. They also get, of course, oh god, frame drop. They also get the Tiger here. So one of the Tigers, Jesus Christ, that frame drop. They get some pretty strong aircraft. You know, we've got Stuka here. You've got the ME-410, which is unlocked much earlier. You've got Fokker Wolves. You've got, you know, BF-109s. You don't get any BF-110s, but you get a lot of BF-109s. And I haven't even talked about their weapons. They got 2 select fires. They've got sniper, you know, they got a sniper SMG, a sniper assault rifle. They got the MP-43. They've got, you know, 2 drum-fed machine guns. MG-42. They've got and plus their starting machine gun is Axis Normandy's mid-machine gun. They generally are one of the most powerful factions. It does take them a while to snowball into this power because, I mean, look at this. This early game is just full of crap. I mean, you get stuff like the Gavir. I mean, look at this. Axis Normandy's, late game anti-tank weapon is their starting anti-tank weapon. So they pretty much get powerful at the beginning, and then they just keep snowballing on and on and on and on. MP-35 there, another late game Axis weapon is unlocked in the mid game. MG-42. They do get some pretty bad stuff here and there, like the VG-1-5, and that's about it really, the VG-1-5. But yeah, you can see they just get more and more powerful the later it goes on. And yeah, I generally think it's one of the most powerful factions in the game, and it comes in at number 2. Not number 1, but I'm pretty sure we all know what number 1 is. I mean, they get 2 versions of the PPSH, for Christ's sake. Like, look at this, they get 2 PPSH 41s, 2 PPDs, PPS here's, they get the PPD 40, the Fedorov, that's just assault rifles, and, 2 select fires, lots of tanks, lots of pretty solid aircraft, and they get really good stuff in the early game. Yeah, no question, without a shadow of a doubt, the number 1 best and most powerful faction in terms of war power has to be the Soviets it's the Soviets here, the Soviets in Berlin. So many powerful weapons, like, you get the AVS, you get, not much earlier than it is in Moscow. You get, the PPSH and the PPD, again, a lot earlier than they are in Moscow. Moscow's late game LMG is their starting LMG. They get stuff like the RD-44, and I haven't even talked about their tanks yet. They got some very strong tanks, like they got T-34-85 as their starter. Yeah, their starter is a T-34. They've also got stuff like the KV-1, not the KV-1, the IS-1. Why did I say KV-1? And of course the IS-2, which pretty much just nukes everything across the planet. They got some IL, the IL-2, the IL. They got some IL-2s. They got the AK-3, which is all right. I don't mind the AK-3, but it's all right. They've also got, that's about it really. They really just got a bunch of just really good weapons. I mean, they've got this the IL-2, which pretty much is a flying brick. This thing generally just, it's very hard to shoot one of these fuckers down. I'm just gonna say, these things are very hard to shoot down. They got a lot of weapons. I mean, they've got multiple bombs, multiple cannons, and rockets. Yeah. Generally, to put it bluntly, Berlin Allies are probably the most powerful faction in Enlisted. Anyways, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.